Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today I am with IB Jaeger and talking to him about his life as a Lutheran, how he fell away from his Lutheran faith and came back after being in a Buddhist monastery for a really long time. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And like always, thank you so much for tuning in to the Lift High the Cross podcast. Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I can't wait to hear your story. We were talking on the DMs, and I was very interested to hearing more about your story. So please introduce yourself to the audience, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is IB Jaeger. I'm a seminarian at American Lutheran Theological Seminary, mixed martial arts instructor, Filipino martial arts instructor. Had a relatively interesting life, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I wanted to specifically talk about kind of your life from the standpoint of when you fell away from Christ. I love having guys come on the show and talking about, either their conversion or times where they met hard times, because this podcast is meant a lot for not only talking about theology and philosophy, but also talking about hard times, talking about difficulties, talking to people about not even people that are non-believers, but also Christians. And hearing your story, reading a little bit about your story when we were chatting through X, it looks like you were a Lutheran for a while and you did go through hard times. So I'd love to hear more about your story.
Yeah, sure. I was... I like to say I'm a child of the two main synods, or son of the two main synods. I was baptized Wisconsin Synod, confirmed Missouri Synod. My family has Lutheran heritage going back on both sides. My dad's side were Prussian immigrants back in the 1800s who settled Wisconsin and helped found Wisconsin Synod churches that are over 100 years old now. My grandmother's side on my mom's side were Norwegian pietists who came over to the Dakotas. Had family who are pastors and missionaries. Very strong Lutheran heritage, strong confessional heritage. Grew up as a military brat, so whenever we would move, we'd have to find a new church. And there's not always a Wisconsin Synod church or a Missouri Synod church, depending on where you're stationed. So we basically went to whatever was closest and strongly confessional. So I got to see the good things and some of the quirks and foibles of both synods.
Good. And so you were telling me a little bit about your past in your younger age. You were talking about how you were kind of a theology nut, like I am. I will confess, I'll be known as the theology guy, which is not a bad thing. Sometimes right. It's a good thing. And I found that really interesting because I know a lot of guys that are like that, especially in their younger years when they're going up into high school, and they really enjoy theology. They really like reading into their church fathers, their whatever reform theologian that started their church, really starting those conversations, really fun. And going into your college years, it seems that you were kind of in this kind of stunt of walking away from God. And it sounds like it first started for you making wrong decisions that were not healthy for you, started impacting your life in a bad way. And then eventually you started to fall away from God, blaming him, possibly rejecting him. Could you talk a little bit about those parts in your life?
Sure, absolutely. I was a theology nerd growing up. I was a nerd overall, comic book nerd, sci-fi nerd. And I honestly, in some ways, my theology nerddom is not separate from those things. I grew up loving stories of David and Gideon and people like that, and obviously the gospel narratives, just the superheroes of the faith, and things like going to Lent services on a Wednesday night and just hearing these readings and being immersed in the liturgy and the hymns. The church year, the liturgical church year, is an epic story on par with Lord of the Rings or anything like that we get to live each year. And so that was really kind of a foundational thing for me in my love for theology. I wanted to dive deep into the lore of this myth that I was living. And so, yeah, I was the kid who from very early on had people telling me I wanted to be or I was going to be a pastor. But I was also the kid who hated people telling me what to do. So I did not react very kindly to all of that. In my, I went to college in my 20s, and I started, I got a job working as a bouncer and did that for many, many years. And, there are good things and bad things about that. For one, it's really, really hard to wake up for a 9 a.m. service when you're getting home at 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday night or Sunday morning. So that just the logistics of that made things hard. So one of the things that I did was I started going to church with a couple of my friends in college who went to a IHOP, International House of Prayer, not Pancakes, influenced church that had services at 12:30. So that was a little more conducive. But if you know anything about them, they're very charismatic. They obviously don't have the same view of the sacraments, very experiential worship, that sort of thing. So my the Lutheran catechesis I'd had growing up, I knew I was among followers of Christ, but it definitely was. I definitely was not the feeding that I needed for my soul. So anyway, while this is going on, I'm still working in bars and doing things like that. Had a period of my life where several people either took their lives or overdosed, and this culminated in a very, very close friend of mine dying in a drunk driving accident, and led to a point in time where I was, I wouldn't say I fell away. I didn't apostatize or reject Christ, because that kind of requires you to not believe anymore. I believed, I just didn't want to talk to God. I didn't want to have anything to do with him, right? I just told him we weren't on speaking terms. Because I don't want to say the trauma, but I was angry at the injustice of the world and questioning why this God I'd been taught to believe in was letting these things happen to the people I cared about.
Yeah, I definitely have, not to that extent from going to different churches, but through my years in high school, I definitely was in a part where friends that I knew that were from different churches, and me being tempted to want to go to them, because being with friends and family that are going to different churches is tough, especially since we're the only Lutheran family in my extended family. Everyone on my dad's side of the family is either Reformed or evangelical, and then everyone in my family, I live in Southwest Missouri, so all my family goes to, my mom's side of the family goes to James River, the huge mega church in Missouri, and so that was always tough for me as growing up, because I wanted to be a part of other churches. I didn't really get why it's important to be going to mass, taking the sacraments, remembering my baptism. All these things were a mystery to me. Why is it so important for me to go to this one church when I can go anywhere else, especially when these other churches look more fun? And so never in my life I was kind of like, I want to walk away from this, either from extent, but from this point in your life, you were wanting to, it seems like you wanted to walk away from it. And we were talking about how you were wanting to, my notes just say you joined a Buddhist temple.
Yeah.
And just, I wanted to ask, like, how did that escalate? I mean, I know you like martial arts. I know you like meditating, but I mean, like, how did that come to?
Like I mentioned at the beginning, I teach martial arts. I had been I've been practicing since I was a young man.
Oh, cool.
It would help me deal with bullying and things like that. I'm from the Karate Kid generation, where if your kid's getting beat up at school, well, you put him in karate class. So that's kind of what my parents did, and I fell in love with that. And so one of the things I had kind of picked up from my martial arts training was the the Zen ideas of learning to better yourself through hardship and focusing on clearing your mind and things like that. So around the same time all of this is happening, I was actually practicing martial arts in a small Buddhist temple near where I lived at the time. And the head monk there was a very kind man, very, very wise man. And I'm going through this traumatic process of dealing with anger, and anger is a light term for it. Rage is probably the better term. Rage, grief. I was acting out harmfully towards myself, getting in fights, drinking too much, things like that. So I knew these were things that were not conducive to me living the rest of my life. They're conducive to me ending up in a very, very bad place, locked up or dead or something stupid. So there was a sense of, I need something to help me get my head straight, figure out what's going on, deal with this rage, deal with this grief, increase the amount of discipline in my life so I'm not doing all of these harmful behaviors. And so it was a very, because of the circumstances I was in, it was actually a very easy decision to make. All right, I'm gonna step out of the world to a degree, and focus on this Zen practice and try and figure out how to deal with my anger and my grief in life.
Yeah, to me, when I see those kind of people that either if they were atheist or had some kind of Christian background, it's really hard to talk to those people after they convert to something like Buddhism, Islam, or Judaism, because it's easy to look at people from like sinful lifestyles that were just living worldly. It's secular. It's easier to talk to them about Christ and about his good works and how he's coming to you as your savior. But when you look at these other false religions and people get really into them, like Buddhism and or Judaism, and how it's really about peace, it's about building yourself up, and how all these different religions, specifically, it's about their works, what they're doing to improve themselves, them seeing that you're broken so you can build yourself back up. And this entire journey you can go. It's like how Hollywood, bunch of movies with guys that are depressed, they think it's all about them. So the only way to fix all their problems in life is to fix themselves. So go through this 5-minute transition of the movie where you're training for 10 or 15 years, working on everything, and then boom, everything's fixed. You're jacked. You know martial arts. You can do anything. You can climb Mount Everest.
The montage, yeah.
Exactly. That's not exactly how it works. And so I always find that difficult talking to those people, because when I tell them that it's wrong or you need to be looking through Christ's eyes, it can be very difficult because there's talking about all these great things. Like, I could see all these benefits and how I'm improving, how my life has changed, which there is some pros to those lifestyles, especially from the United States culture, from Judaism or Islam, and how they really show their eyes of how they like helping their neighbor. They like respecting their God. They like being pleasure to others. So it's really hard to see that way and talk to those people. And I'm sure from your standpoint, when you were there for 7 years, almost a decade, I'm sure you were benefiting a lot from those kind of practices too. I mean, even Buddhism, I believe they consider Jesus as a prophet. And so they were also probably all teaching you Jesus as well. Maybe definitely a false Jesus, but nevertheless, a lot of those teachings. So I'm sure you were able to an extent at some point, were feeling good about yourself up until things started going down for you once again.
Yeah, I totally get your point on talking to people who have apostatized for whatever it is they've now gone to. And I certainly encountered a lot of those people. We talk about people who've been harmed by the church or harmed by religion. They've had parents who are too dictatorial in their faith, or hypocrites. They pious at church on Sunday and then cheating on the spouse or something like that, or their minister turned out to be a kid toucher or a raging alcoholic or something. So they've been hurt by the religious institution and religious people in their life, and so when they go somewhere else, it's kind of the grass is greener on the other side effect. It takes them a while to see, well, there's bad people in this group or this sect or this institution as well. And one of the things you learn very quickly is that the grass isn't greener on the other side. I never empathized with those people, though. I did to the extent that they were hurting, but they were very vitriolic towards Christianity, whereas I wasn't angry at the truths I'd learned or the catechesis I'd received or the upbringing my parents gave me or the great pastors I'd had in my youth. My anger was literally at God. It was I didn't have an issue with Christianity. I still held so many of the things I'd learned to be true. I just did not want to deal with God. I wanted to work through the anger in my head and in my heart. And yeah, you're right. There are things. I was talking to Jonathan Fisk once, and I don't know if he coined this term, but or if somebody else did. He calls it first article truths. We're all a part of this same creation that was created by our God. So there are things in other systems of thought or even other religions that are true and can be beneficial and helpful. And the problem becomes when they take those first article truths and make them into the second article. Instead of being about the God of creation, it's now our salvation, doing these things, doing these work-based things. That's how you're going to find nirvana, go to Valhalla, whatever your form of paganism or heathenism is. You're substituting your efforts for Christ. So that was never my goal. I never, I didn't intend to go into Buddhism to achieve nirvana. I literally just wanted to get my head straight and find some discipline and not be the person who I was becoming. And so I think that kind of had a play into why I went as far as I could with it, and why in the end it helped me, but then it was unsatisfactory.
That's great. You were able to contact or meet Pastor Fisk. I got to meet him a month ago. I got to talk to him for a while. And so that's great. When did you get to meet him and talk to him?
Probably so before I met my wife, so 8 or 9 years ago. I guess we could jump ahead into my story. One of the things that when I was coming out of Zen, I'm sitting there in the temple, getting back into searching my Lutheran upbringing, and I came across his video where he was responding to one of the young Reformed guys at the time. I can't remember his name, but basically just hammering down Lutheran distinctives. And why we are not like the Reformed, and it was all things of why I was not like the rest of the people in the who were practicing Zen around me. So I met him at the March for Life shortly thereafter, because I'm based out here just north of DC. So I went down for that. And I think we'd probably conversed online in either in the Worldview Everlasting forum or something along those lines. And so we just got to talking. And then I met up with him at one point when I was out in Missouri.
Oh, that's great. Just to clarify, the monastery you were at, it wasn't in Nepal or anything. It was in the...
No, it was here in Baltimore.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
It was here in Baltimore. Yeah, I was not living in Nepal at the time. Yeah, no, it was a Korean Zen. So it's actually called Sun in Korean. A form of Korean Buddhism that it's called patriarchal Zen, which refers to the way the teachings are handed down from one patriarch to the next patriarch to the next patriarch through a very, very rigorous curriculum of meditation designed to help you have the experiences that the teachers have had. So it's not like, here, read this book, and okay, cool, now you understand it. You could read a book about boxing, but until you put those gloves on and you've been punched in the face, you know about boxing. You've never boxed, right? So it's kind of that idea that you have to go through these experiences to actually understand the teachings. So that was very helpful in some ways because you have to learn how to handle your thoughts, your emotions, and really discipline yourself, which has never been something I've been good at, which is probably why I was attracted to the martial arts, why I was attracted to Zen, because I'm not a disciplined person. So having something outside myself to do that, to adhere to, has helped me. So I'd gone through this, long process, and at one point, I kept, whatever it was I was learning, I kept running into Jesus. I kept, the thought of, okay, this is good, but this isn't going to save me. It might help me, but it's never going to save me. The Holy Spirit that I received in my baptism just would not let go of me. It wouldn't let me just let me go and be Buddhist. So I was like, okay, this meditation thing's helping me. There's got to be something in Christianity that would do the same. I started doing research. I came across hesychasm, the Greek Orthodox practices. I was like, all right, this is cool. I could kind of get on board with this, but there's got to be something in Lutheranism, because Greek Orthodox is cool, but it still rubbed up against the things I had learned and been taught from my family and all my pastors, and the things I still deep down believe to be true. So I found basically three things. The first was Gene Weiss, Spirituality of the Cross. I devoured that book in probably one night. And then I found Martin Luther's, again, looking for a way of meditation. I found Martin Luther's A Simple Way to Pray, a translation of it by Matthew Harrison, which if you have not read Luther's Simple Way to Pray, I highly recommend it. So many people are like, well, okay, I don't know how to pray. And Luther lays it out in a very, very simple way that's completely focused on Scripture and listening to what God is telling you in the Scriptures and responding back to Him with that. Very, very, very helpful text. Very short text as well. He walks you through the Catechism to kind of give you an example of how you can pray daily. And then I found the Theologia Germanica, which was a text allegedly written by an unnamed Teutonic knight who's a part of the Friends of God, which was I guess you'd call it like a lay monastic group. They were not an official Roman Catholic orders. They were dissatisfied with Roman Catholicism at the time. And so it was written by this unknown knight based on what they were practicing. And Luther found this book and republished it very early in his career because it had been so helpful to him. He at one point said that for him, the first book was Scripture. The second book was the works of Saint Augustine. I always have to correct myself because I lived in Florida for a while, so I always say Saint Augustine, and people look at me funny. And then the third was the Theologia Germanica. So I devoured that as well. And those got me going, got me really starting to dig back into my Lutheran faith. So there I was in my room at the temple watching Worldview Everlasting videos.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Excuse me. I have to give Fisk one more shout out because from meeting him, I did a podcast with him about over 1 year ago, and we were able to talk right back up, continuing our conversation a month ago. And from me talking to him, and him talking to me a lot about things that I've been struggling with, things that I've been working on. It just sounds so much how you're describing it. From you've had a lot of things figured out. You're disciplined. You're wanting to do martial arts, which is also cool too, because Fisk has been doing jujitsu for about 4 or 5 years, and it's really cool to see him do that as well. And I am really encouraged by him because he is the perfect replication of a Lutheran practicing in the way of good works and how that's intended, and how Lutherans believe in faith alone, but also we should be looking through James chapter 2 about because we're saved, because Christ loves us, because we're encouraged to do good things, we should do good works, and not just good works for other people or neighbor, but also be looking at things that can be also building ourselves up to be better Christians, to serve others and to serve God. And seeing as how he lives his life, always continuing studying, always preaching the gospel. He does 3 sermons every weekend, and he also spends a lot of time doing jujitsu with a lot of people, not just from his church, but also he invites kids from different churches to come do jujitsu at his little dojo over there. And I got to see all that, and I was really encouraged by that, because I definitely would say I am pretty good from the Lutheran perspective of being a Protestant, but from my Catholic perspective of doing good works, I can always see I can do a better job of that. So it's really cool to see.
Well, and that's the thing with good work. We can always do better than that.
Exactly.
And that's why our salvation is not based on that. Doesn't matter how much you're doing, you could always be doing better. I love the quote of Luther that you always hear Flame requoting. God doesn't need our good works, but our neighbor does. So that's awesome. I haven't talked to Fisk in years, so tell him hi next time you talk to him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm planning on doing another episode with him too, and hopefully, God willing, I can go see him again in Rockford. But continuing on to your story and how at that point you were starting to shift back, and I love the way that you when you were sending me your story through X, talking about how things like your baptism was popping up, things like the Holy Spirit was reaching you. It seems like at this point you were starting to reach back into your Lutheran faith. How at this point in your life, what was making you officially come back? Because I can't really quite remember. You were talking about you were at a Baptist church at one point when you were coming back to your faith, or was that not right? Or
that was before the temple. That was it was a Presbyterian church, a Korean Presbyterian church congregation that was more aligned with the International House of Prayer, which I would not call them Baptist. They're their own charismatic in the extreme, big on prophecy, things of that nature.
Okay. And what I'd ask next is, and I love this from the beginning, what you were talking about, your story is you've had so many people that have walked up to you and asks you, hey, have you ever considered being a pastor? I think you'd be a really good pastor. And that's my life story, man. I just walking around a church, I can't walk away with people asking me, do you want to be a pastor? And 2-3 years ago, I would always say no, or just maybe, so I can get them off my back. And 2 years in the last year, that's something that I've wanted to focus doing, finishing, getting out of college, wanting to pursue ministry. And so that's been a very helpful thing, impacted. I feel like one of the best things I've God had that's ever shown me signs of what to do something. It's through the people going into my life and telling me I should be pursuing ministry, become a pastor, serve a congregation. And so I'd ask you, at this point of in your life, when you realized you wanted to go to ministry, when did that start? What kind of made you give you this realization of looking back at all the times people have asked you to pursue something? What made you change your mind about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I, obviously got out of the temple, left that life behind to a large degree. Started getting back into my faith, going to church more regularly, made my mother happy. That was about a decade ago. And, again, being that theology nerd, being that guy who enjoyed reading and studying and loved the liturgy, once again, very, very quickly, people would start saying, oh, yeah, you should be a pastor. And I still definitely was not interested in that in any way, shape, or form. All the respect in the world. I had all the respect in the world for the pastors I knew, and just did not want that life or want that lifestyle for myself. And also, in a lot of ways, knowing myself, and especially coming through the Zen practice and everything, really getting to look inside the deeper, dark corners of my mind and my personality, not feeling worthy of that. Still not feeling worthy of that. I am not a people person, which I know a lot of pastors will actually tell you, hey, I'm an introvert. I can be very stubborn, obviously, because I kept telling people, no, I didn't want to be a pastor. Like I said, I can be angry at times. So these are all things I was looking at myself and disqualifying myself for. I can be unorganized. I can be undisciplined at times. All things that I would not want in a pastor. But again, theology nerd, kept reading, kept studying. When I got married, my wife, who has a very strong Christian upbringing, but was raised in a non-denominational church, very Baptist background, and had experienced for herself pastors' wives who were kind of seen as, the mission partner, the ministry partner, where they, pastor's wife has to lead the women's group, has to lead the women's Bible studies, has to organize all the children's activities, and she's in charge of VBS, and just kind of looked at all of that for herself and thought, this is a lot to take on. And she had her goals at the time, and those were not a part of her goals. But regardless, we get married. She joined the Lutheran Church we've been a part of for several years now. And having watched the pastors' wives she's encountered in our churches, and seen that they don't have that same expectation foisted upon them. The wife of our pastor right now, she's very involved, but it's more of, it's a choice for her. That's who she is as a person, and not who she's required to be. So at first, my wife had said, "Nope, I don't want to be a pastor's wife," and I thought, "Great, I don't want to be a pastor. I'm just going to use you as my excuse for now. Anytime, I don't have to just say no now. Anytime somebody says you should be a pastor, I'm like, oh yeah, sure, but my wife doesn't want to be a pastor's wife, so too bad." And so then I guess it was over a year ago. Yeah, because I've been in seminary for 3 semesters now. Over a year ago, we hosted, our church hosted one of the bishops from the Siberian Evangelical Lutheran Church, which, if you're not hooked in with them on Facebook, or Instagram, definitely do that because they post great content. They're very strong evangelical Lutheran message. Some beautiful churches over there too. But we were hosting him for a kind of wine and cheese event, and had congregation members there, and one of his friends from Fort Wayne, who was the provost of the seminary at the time, or provost previously and now retired, was a guest. And I don't recall the conversation, but I was in a conversation with my pastor, the former provost, and we were talking about something theological. And I guess I made a comment that he liked or something. He asked, "Well, where'd you hear that, or where'd you read that?" I said, "I don't remember. I'm a theology nerd. I like reading theology." And he kind of looked at me and goes, "You could get paid to do that." which is kind of is mercenary. But if you're looking for a career and you need to pay the bills, and you're good at theology, I don't see anything wrong with that. If I had an aptitude for cars, you can get paid doing that. So, so that, not that I hadn't thought of that before, but just something about the way he said it, and his attitude, his smile was very winsome, I guess. So then a few months later, my wife was having a conversation with somebody else, and was talking about, how, things she'd experienced since going to church with me, and the pastor's wife thing came up, and she's like, "Yeah, they don't have all these expectations. Our pastor's wife is very involved. She's, teaches in the schools and everything like that." But yeah, I could see myself as a Lutheran pastor's wife. And it was kind of like, well, great. Now I have no more excuses whatsoever, aside from my own, own fear of failure and mistrust of myself. So I'd during my studies and just looking around at things, I'd come across Dr. Jordan Cooper, who's one of the few people on YouTube who's done any content related to the Theologia Germanica. So of course I immediately devoured that, and then started watching the rest of his stuff. And so I got familiar with him, and through him heard about American Lutheran Theological Seminary. And originally, a couple years back, when again I was not going to become a pastor, no way, never going to happen. I thought about, maybe I should, I should just get my MDiv, or not my MDiv, give me a master's in theology, because why not? I'm a theology nerd. I should have the degree. So I knew about American Lutheran Theological Seminary. So then when the time finally came, and the same big fish, the Leviathan that had grabbed Jonah and said, "No, you're going over here to minister to these people." When that finally grabbed me, I gravitated towards that, one, because the things I learned about and from Dr. Cooper, encounters I'd had with the AALC, and it's certainly because their program there, it's a very rigorous program, but they make it they don't make it easy. Trust me, taking 3 master's level classes right after your wife has had your second baby, while teaching, classes at the dojo, that's not easy. But they do make it possible, and they're very supportive for second career men, for working fathers, to pursue the ministry.
Oh man, that's got to be praised. That's a fantastic to hear. You and Pastor Fisk should start a huge dojo down in Rockford.
I'm very glad to hear he's doing BJJ. When I'd last talked to him, he had not started martial arts yet, so that was good to hear.
Yeah, it is really cool to hear. Have you ever gotten a chance to meet Dr. Jordan Cooper while he was over there at the seminary?
So we actually just had a big, what do you call it? Like a retreat for several days, where a lot of the professors and the seminarians got together and stayed at a gorgeous retreat house, and spent 3 or 4 days just diving into the Gospel of John, looking at exegesis, how to preach from it, history, all kinds of aspects to it. And so he was there. He was he presented on some of the topics. Great guy. Very great guy. Cool. Very dry sense of humor, which is good because I like that. I actually had him my first semester. I took the Prolegomena class, which is kind of like the entry level. And then the only other class that could fit my schedule that I could find to fit in was a 400 level law and gospel class. So I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Plus, Dr. Cooper's taking it. This will be great. And I signed up for that. And I'm glad to hear you're considering seminary, and it's great being a theology nerd, but you realize how much you don't know when you jump into a 400 level class and the other guys start talking.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, there's some great students at ALTS, some great guys who, God willing, will make great pastors. That just, the professors have blown me away. The other SEMs have blown me away. So, is it true that the reason that Dr. Jordan Cooper went to Boston is because he filed a restraining order for Remy Shepherd? Oh boy, there might be some merit of that accusation. I don't know. No, I can neither confirm or deny anything regarding Remy. I can tell you that Remy is only the third or maybe fourth coolest guy at ALTS. That's what I've been hearing around town. So I'll have to ask him that when I talked to him a couple of days ago. But I remember I saw that video of him talking to Jordan Cooper, and he told him to back off. It's the guys are great. The culture is just great. I love it. I love the people I'm studying with. I love the people I'm learning from. Even classes I struggle with, the professors are just great. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you for hearing your story. Hope to talk to you again soon. No problem. Absolutely.